We are seeing from game to game an increase in commercial success. So we're sitting at 1,750 reviews, which is obviously our best game so far. A little bit of foreshadowing. The biggest mistakes we made in Atrio happened in the first 6 months.
This is a conversation with Stephen Huang, founder of Isto Inc., a 3-man indie game dev team that has been on a crazy growth trajectory. So far, every game they made has been more successful than the last.
Every time you finish a project, you add something to your arsenal. And if you only take on one really big thing every single time, it minimizes scope while also pushing your boundaries. I would be remiss. I think I'd be in a really bad spot if our first 2 games had done super well.
Stephen came very prepared. This is almost Stephen doing the podcast solo because he came so prepared. I found it extremely, extremely insightful, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did.
I had graduated university in 2014 with a computer science degree. And in my last year, I had actually taken a game design course, but I had gotten a job at Microsoft. So in Canada, you finish school in April, and then I got the job starting September. So I thought, you know what? Hey, it'd be kind of fun to make a game over the course of the summer. So Kyle, who I started Copper Brain with, we decided, hey, let's do it. Just like any new game dev, we were like, let's pick a game that's smaller scoped that we can do in 4 months. And guess what? Over the course of 4 months, we got it done.
Oh, really?
I'm totally kidding. It took us 3 years. So over the course of the summer, I was like, oh my God, this is so big. Oh, well, whatever. I guess we'll just keep working on it. So over my tenure at Microsoft, which is about 2.5 years, just over, evenings and weekends, I worked on the game and totally fell in love. The job at Microsoft was awesome. I really liked it. And it was obviously great for my financial future to be making, Fortune 500 company kind of money down in the States, while also honing my skills as a game dev. Obviously, you have less time to be social if you're working all evenings and weekends, but it was really fun. There were 3 of us. One of them was my best friend who knows nothing about computers, but he's an amazing puzzle designer. Because it was meant to be just this 4-month summer project, he was like, yeah, sure, why not? At this point, he had a job at a bank. He was working his way up. Kyle was coaching the Australian women's national freestyle team in Norway, all the way across the earth. I was in Seattle. And so it was definitely a challenge to work with everybody, but we made it work. And
so were you remote from the beginning, or?
We were all in Calgary in the beginning, thinking that we were going to be working on it for 4 months. And then we all went our separate ways and then ended up, working on it across the world, which is definitely a challenge.
That first project was Disjoint, or was it Atrio already?
That was Disjoint. You're right. I skipped a step. So we had this cool idea. It was called Disjoint. And the idea was you roll triangles around to create shapes. And the cool mechanic was if you created a hexagon, if you look at it from like this right angle, it actually looks like a cube. And so if you add shadows and lighting, you can turn it into a cube. And that way you can transform from 2D to 3D space. And if you roll those triangles around with a specific perspective, you can actually hide sides behind each other and then create and destroy triangles, which is pretty cool. The only issue is this was our first time making a game. We weren't really thinking about the commercial aspect of things. And so over the course of 3 years, we built this massive project. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, there wasn't that much pressure because we were all working. And then we launched the game. And a couple things happened, and this is where we dive into the insights. The first thing that happened is just before launch, we went viral on Reddit. I posted on r/gaming this little GIF saying, hey, we've been working on this mind-bending puzzle for 3 years, and it went super viral. You can see it has 52,000 upvotes. I think the GIF in itself had 1.5 million views in the first day, and then it got deleted. If you know anything about Reddit, the mods are very particular. Their self-promotion rules are extremely stringent. And so we were on this super high. This was total luck, by the way. It wasn't part of the plan. We weren't really thinking about marketing at the time. It just went viral, and then it got deleted, which is kind of sad, but it gave us confidence thinking like, oh, hey, like this game has some juice to it, which is really exciting. And so we launched the game with all this momentum. We released another GIF, and it didn't do as well, but it still got a lot of upvotes on Reddit. And we released it to the Apple App Store and the Android App Store as well. It was a paid puzzle game on the App Store in 2017. And it did terribly, if you can imagine.
That's probably to be expected.
To be expected.
Yeah.
It's probably been taken down. We haven't updated it. And I'll talk about that because there was one really big mistake we made with the game. And that's why it's not on the App Store anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yet. If I find time, I'd like to bring it back. But one of the biggest mistakes is we used a third-party plugin built by a single dude. I had this idea of like, resolution keeps increasing over and over, and like screens are getting bigger and better. So this is a very like vector-based game. Why don't we use vector art, like SVGs? And at the time, Unity did not have SVG support. It still doesn't support animations. So we used this plugin from this guy. He was just like on GitHub. It was free. And we basically built our entire art system around that. And then he stopped updating it. And the iOS store is very, it forces you to continually release new versions and keep up with its like standards. Unlike Steam, where you can release the app and leave it up for a couple of years, Apple is not like that. I think it's part of how they make money, but it's also how they keep updates and stuff. So when it went out, you cannot build for iOS and older versions of Unity. You have to keep up to date. And so the plugin broke with a newer update, and the guy stopped working on it. So we either had to build the entire art system back from scratch or abandon it. And so you can kind of tell what that was. But let's talk about the launch, because with all this marketing momentum, we were excited. This was our first commercial game. People were, the people we showed, we went to a couple conventions, we showed the game, we play tested with people, and they said, yeah, this is cool. This is a cool game. And so we were thinking, oh, this is hot shit. This is going to go really well. And in my credit, I am obviously the cheerleader of this, group. I thought the game was cool, and I'm still extremely proud of the game. I think it's really fun. I think it's really cool, but no one really played the game. I think in total, this one I could share numbers I could share numbers about. The other ones I can't, but I think we sold in total $30,000 Canadian, which if you think about 3 people working on the game, it comes out to about 7 cents an hour in terms of an hourly wage.
Oh, no.
That's how I like to think about it. Yeah. That was the one thing that was sort of my maturity into a game developer, like from a passion project into a commercial, was thinking about it from like a minimum wage standpoint. Like if you aren't making minimum wage, this is not a professional job. Like you can't switch to that.
The initial release was on Steam, Android, and iOS, like all 3 platforms, or was the initial release just Steam?
It was just iOS and Android.
Okay, and Steam was later then. Okay.
Steam was later. We were like, it might be kind of fun. Maybe we'll get some more sales. If you look at Steam now, there's only 4 user reviews. So I think that's pretty telling of where the project stands. After releasing the project, we'd obviously been working on it for 3 years. It was a massive deal for us, evenings and weekends. We did a big postmortem. And we looked at the project, we looked at the sales, and we were like, obviously, this is not going to set us up for life. The sales are, not great. And it did a couple of things. These are what I wrote down. It really humbled me. You have this idea of like, oh, I'm working on an idea that's so cool. It's going to sell $1 million. Obviously, we're going to make it big. Like Xbox is going to reach out to us. They're going to want to buy our IP. Like it's just, you can get lost in the sauce really easily when you're working in a project for 3 years. And I think it's a balance of caring about the project, which is really important. If you don't really care about the project, you're not going to work on it for 3 years. While also finding a way to be humble and be like, okay, well, I'm not the greatest programmer or the greatest game developer, and finding that balance of believing in yourself while also still staying humble, I think that was a great learning experience. The second thing that we learned is how to build a big project. Working on a project for 3 years is often, if you see people talking about it online, is often like not advised. But I actually thought it was a huge boon for us because you can't build out systems in a really short amount of time. You can't really think deeply about how to structure a project and optimization and like how to manage like hundreds of assets. You just don't get forced into thinking about that in a smaller project. That being said, context is extremely important. We were all working full-time jobs. There was no pressure. We had the capacity to fail, and we failed, right? So the other thing that I want to mention is one of my strengths is I don't burn out. I am really good at being consistent. I wake up every single day. I'm excited to work on the project. That's just kind of who I am as a person. And so for me, taking on big projects has never been an issue. I know that if I start something that I'm excited about, I'll finish it. And I typically don't start things without thinking about them That's just kind of who I am. I have lots of pitfalls. I'm sloppy in other areas for sure, but those are the things I'm good at. So big projects don't scare me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing was genre matters. And I'm sure a lot of people who have worked on games for a little bit of time know this. But as a total beginner, I never really thought about genre. We were like, oh, if it's really cool, people are going to play it. But you start to realize that, industries or trends in the industry change. And no one's really playing puzzle games anymore in the paid space, especially paid mobile. I mean, mobile paid is crazy. I don't think we'll ever do a mobile game ever again, especially paid. Steam a little bit different, but really, like, you're not seeing trends of top charts going crazy with puzzle games. And so going into the next project, we were really thinking, okay, we need to do our market research because genre matters. Why aren't we picking, genres that are really popular? And that leads us into Atrio. So a couple good things happened with Disjoint that I didn't mention. The reviews were really good. And I know you can't see them because it's been taken down in the store. I might have some screenshots I can send you, but we had a nearly perfect 5-star rating. The people who did play it really liked the game. And that was very encouraging, even though it didn't convert to units. And this is a symptom that a lot of new devs who have flop projects.
This is something you see all the time. My game has so many positive reviews. Why isn't it doing better, right? Exactly this.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's just the marketing. Clearly, it's just that I'm not getting enough visibility from the store because I have the proof right here. The game's good. People think it's good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it does say you can create an appealing project, right? I think if you release a game that gets 50 reviews and they're all bad, that's like concerning.
Sure.
But I think we were number 2 on the paid side of the App Store for a day, which is kind of exciting. So we did have a big spike and people were excited about it. We had articles written about us. The general reception was positive. And I think the big thing is we learned so much that I was excited to really try it again, knowing everything about Unity. We'd really thought about how to architect a solution for, bigger projects at this point. And I think all of that learning had me pretty motivated. Going into 2018, I started Isto Inc. So that's why it's like a bit of a different company. Kyle was working at the time, but he didn't have the runway to quit his job. And so I started the company on my own and hired him as, the only basically employee. That way he could quit his job and we could both work full time. Nice. And I took market research seriously this time. So I mapped out, Steam puts out the top selling, gold, platinum, silver, whatever list of games every single year. And so I took a look at them and built this massive chart. So we were like, this time around, we are going to find the genres that actually work, and we're not going to build a puzzle game for the App Store for like iOS and Android. So I've sent you some images. We were kind of taking a look, and there were some general trends that we were seeing. Strategy and simulation base building, you could see them, are really at the top end. They were really crushing it in 2016, 2017. And so we went into this brainstorming process really thinking about picking the right market. And that's how we landed on an automation survival game. Those were the two big categories we were seeing, and we were like, why don't we mix the two together? I mean, what could go wrong with mixing the two? They're like really two of the most popular. Don't Starve meets Factorio seems like a really cool idea. And a little bit of foreshadowing, the biggest mistakes we made in Atrio happened in the first 6 months. A lot of stuff went right, including like the project management, the scope, everything. That all went really, really well. It was this cascading effect of mistakes, mostly from inexperience in the first 6 months, that basically ran all the way through the entire project. So let's get into it.
Both projects failed in the same stage. The first one failed when you decided what to make, and so did Atrio.
That's right.
Just in a different way.
The first time we didn't even know we should even be trying to look in that category. The second time we didn't know how to do it correctly. And this is why I want to share this journey, just to explain how hard it is to get a good idea, because it's such a nebulous thing to measure.
Yeah.
Like the analogy I use is basketball. If you think you're hot shit at basketball, all you have to do is go to the basketball court and play against some players. And if you get dunked on, you get this immediate feedback of like, oh, maybe I'm not the greatest in the world. You know what I'm saying? And like, this is a guy who just plays random street basketball, not LeBron James. Whereas in game development, you have to work on a game for 3 years and then release it. And that's like the pool. That's the time you get compared against other games. That's a long time to take one single shot at a basketball court. That's like pretty scary. And there's ways to get around it. We'll talk about it sort of at the end of this journey that I've been thinking about. But at this point in time, we didn't even know to think about it. It's not written anywhere. It's just so intangible. So we got started. We thought about the project. We thought about, the market. We were really gung-ho. Things went really well in terms of production. I'd say the code base that we built is the code base we're using now. Like a lot of our architectural decisions have carried through all of our other projects. So we really thought about that. The thing that we use, and I'm not super familiar with this, but have you heard of Zenject?
No, what's that?
It's like code injection. So instead of having to, like in Disjoint, if we wanted to call a function from another script, we would manually drag and drop the prefab. Like you would link them manually that way.
Yeah.
Which is insane. That or singletons. But with Zenject, you can just inject the actual script, like the name of the script, and then you can call all of their different functions. That's the high level of it. Our entire architecture is based on that, and it's amazing.
Is that like a Unity plugin, or where can you look into that?
I don't know. Everybody else knows everything about Zenject except for me. I just kind of use it. I don't want to say.
I'll do some digging.
Yeah, do some digging.
Yeah,
but yeah, I love it. It's amazing. We started building, and for the first year, I think the big challenge when I talk about the mistakes from the first 6 months, the big challenge was you're building such a complex project, especially automation. It requires so many pieces to be in place before you can have any sort of like simulation of fun.
Yeah.
And so on top of that, like if we had just focused on the factory building game, I think we got there pretty quickly. But the fact that we were trying to mix survival with automation, we couldn't get anybody to finish our like 30-minute demo without getting fully stuck. It took us like, honest to God, 10 months. And at that point, they weren't even having fun. They were just trying to get through it. And so we had to build these like really detailed tutorial systems, these like really detailed instructions. We had to prep them, and like I had to be there to walk them through it just to kind of get through. And then at the end of all of it, a lot of it wasn't fun. We managed to figure it out. We had this idea. I had suspicions that this might be a challenge. And so going into the project, we were like, if one of the genres isn't fun, we'll pivot towards the other one. So for example, if the survival aspect is not that fun, we have Factorio to base everything off of. Like that's a working formula. We can transition that way. Or if the survival is really fun, we can go that way. Unfortunately, any mix of the two without any experience made it very challenging. We just kept having to just the runtime in such a complex system was pretty challenging for us to kind of create a fun experience. On top of that, obviously building these massive systems took a long time. Fast forward 3 years, it's now 2020 and the pandemic hits and everybody's stuck inside. We have nothing to do. So I decided to start a YouTube channel. And at this point, we'd shared the game a little bit, but really we have no following. Nobody knows about us. Nobody knows about the game. No one cares about the game. And our local game developer group, a guy had started a devlog series kind of over COVID. And I was like, you know what? I got nothing going on. Why don't I try it? I had been watching devlogs. I think a couple of the big ones was Danny was still just kind of popping off. I think you were making devlogs. Bargy had kind of kicked off. And I thought to myself, yeah, this seems both interesting. And I had definitely started to notice a trend at that point that normal traditional media was definitely losing its power. Website articles, people weren't reading anymore. People were really starting to care about streamers and content creators. And I figured, why not? Why not A, learn how to edit, and B, like try to build a fan base of our own? I think I had been percolating this idea of carrying our fan base across multiple projects rather than just having one game build its fans and then that's it. In Disjoint, we had like a Twitter account just for the game. If you look at our social media, there's none of that. Like there's no Atrio game, there's no get to work game. It's literally just Isto Inc. And there's a reason for that is we really care about bringing our fans along this journey. I think that's like a huge power. So fast forward another year and we enter early access launch. So at this point, we had kind of figured out all the stuff. We had, gone through sort of the painful process of finding the fun, building these complex systems. And it's now been about 3 years, 3 years and 6 months it took us to get to early access launch. which is a little bit more than we had expected, but kind of in the similar vein of what we were kind of hoping for. We knew this was going to be a big project. So we had done a lot of work to build a lot of wish lists. And so I was obviously both nervous and excited because I had now quit my job, but I had done it strategically. I quit my job, but my parents were very supportive of me doing this. And they were like, you can come live with us. You don't have to pay for rent. You're starting your own business. We want to support you and see you succeed. So they were paying for groceries and rent. And that way I could take on all this risk, which is obviously super exciting. And I'm super grateful. But I just want to mention that just in case someone else is in a different situation. I think context is extremely important on, why I'm making these decisions. There's a lot of factors that go into this, and especially in Canada, we have free healthcare. It's a little bit of a different ballgame than if you're, in a different country. We launched the game in early access and it didn't go well. The sales figures we were seeing were not great. They definitely weren't good enough to break even or to support the studio going forward.
How were the reviews at launch? Were like overwhelmingly positive, or was it mostly positive? Or?
I don't remember. I think they were pretty good.
Okay.
1.0 was definitely a different ballgame. I think the expectations were much lower for early access. I think people had been burned by other early access games, and so the bar was pretty low in 2021. But I remember the reviews being pretty positive, but I definitely remember the momentum was not there in our favor. I remember I don't often get stressed. I'm a pretty relaxed kind of guy. I remember I had to take like the afternoon off and just go lay down. Because I was like, oh my God, like we just spent all this time. I quit my job. Don't know if we're going to make it. This is like rough. And that's never happened
even though you had a lot of wish lists.
We had quite a few wish lists, definitely. Yeah. Building momentum into that, but they weren't converting. And so I was like, what is going on? Maybe it's just because the game isn't done. Maybe it's just, momentum, not really sure. But we had a lucky break. A couple things happened. A streamer named Atrioc, which I'll get into. I have way more to talk about from that side of things. Streamer named Atrioc, I had engaged with him over his Reddit, and he played the game. And that was a big boost for us. That actually helped quite a lot. And during the course of right around early access, we got an Xbox exclusive deal. And that was pretty significant amount of money. I don't think they do it anymore. If you look at Xbox's change in campaign, I think they're really not caring about exclusives at all. But that was a lucky break for us that really gave us the runway to finish the project. And so with that Xbox deal, despite the poor sales, we were like, we need to finish the game. Obviously, if we want to ever exist as a brand or as a company, you have to finish what you start, no matter what.
Sure.
We were committed to finishing the game no matter what. And I had planned financially to be able to survive this, even just for myself. Even if it didn't work out, I'd be able to find another job. But obviously, my goal is to make games forever.
Yeah.
Obviously, super passionate about that. So we launched the game, we got the Xbox deal, and I brought in François, who had a lot of experience porting to Xbox. Obviously, with the that exclusive deal, that was a high priority for us. And we spent basically a year and a half finishing the project and launching into 1.0. Now, at this time, the YouTube channel actually started pulling its weight. In and around up to development, we had a couple of videos that really kind of popped off. This is pre-early access that was really building a lot of wish lists. So we were really hoping like, some people just don't buy early access games. Maybe 1.0 will be okay. We had some flops. And when we get into YouTube, because I know you and I disagree about the importance of YouTube.
Awesome.
We'll dive into some figures. We can tie that in.
Yep.
But we had some that really contributed to wish lists, but they weren't converting. There's a couple of things that converted, but not a lot during early access was converting. So we finished the game and we launched in 1.0. Now, I know the trend is early access launches are usually a lot bigger than 1.0. So we were obviously super nervous about that because the sales weren't that great. But in our case, you can see here, there was a massive spike. A lot more people were receptive to Atrio on 1.0 launch. And I don't really know why, honestly. I thought early access was pretty solid, but a lot more people picked it up. We had some really big YouTubers pick it up, and we had Atrioc obviously in our ball court who played the game again, so that was great. But again, not a smash hit. If you look at the Steam page today, we're sitting at about 545 reviews, which is good. To be clear, I think if you are a small studio and trying to survive, that pays the bills. It depends on how much you spend, obviously, but this was enough plus the Xbox deal to keep us going. So I was, after 1.0 launch, we weren't sure if we were going to break even, but it was definitely enough for a big runway for another game. So I was obviously very excited about that.
Nice.
Now let's talk about the insights, because we did a big postmortem after this. This was the big one. We had spent nearly 5 years building this game, and obviously it was not the smash hit that we wanted. This was our second time around. We had learned from Disjoint what went wrong. So the first thing is, I think the hook was too abstract. And again, the whole premise of the game was decided in the first 6 months. The game was about capturing creatures and adding them to your assembly line. And it turns out no one gives a shit about capturing creatures and adding them to your assembly line. And if that's the basis of the game, you're going to be in trouble.
Oh no. I've had a lot of developers recently talking about how they made the mistake of basically choosing a look for their game that makes it difficult for their target audience to identify with it. So I'm kind of feeling this a little bit maybe as well for Atrio, that if you're an automation game player and you see Atrio, it's not like you don't instantly understand that this is for you, right? It's kind of a little bit of that as well.
I completely agree. I think there was the survival aspect. If you've played Atrio, you know that it is definitely more on the automation side of things. That's where we started leaning based on the feedback. Less survival for sure. It was going to be spooky. It's really not spooky at all anymore. It's a cleaner, more artsy art style. And the people who typically play automation games favor more utilitarianism. They want to like know what's going on immediately and be able to quickly work around the controls and actually build items. I don't think it was a huge detriment. I think the isometric art style is very crisp and clear, and you can tell what's going on at all times. And a lot of people did like the art style, but I think it's survivorship bias. I think people who were like turned off by it just didn't buy the game. But at least the people who did like the art style in the reviews, said so. But again, if you look at certain automation games that are out there with like 60,000 reviews and aren't 500, I think it's safe to assume that like we made some big mistakes and we didn't capture a lot of players. And so we didn't get that feedback of what they wanted. They just didn't buy the game.
Sure. I mean, we can agree it's not the quality of the art style, right? The quality of the art is extremely high, and also the execution is really well done. It's more like if anything, it's the choice of the direction you went with. Yeah.
And again, it comes down to not knowing what to measure. It's so hard to like, how do you ask people, oh, hey, like, is this an art style you would play? You got to find the person who plays automation games. Well, first you got to know like, oh, this is an automation game. We were already bogged down by the idea of a survival meets automation game, plus the fact that, we didn't know what to measure, plus the fact that we didn't even know how to contact the people to measure this data. So lots of layers of this abstract concept of like, how do we find people who want to play this game? And that was the second point that we came to, is we need to validate that people want us to play this game early. We did not do that. We were just in our little COVID bubble, and we just said, we looked at the market research. We know these two genres work, and let's do it. And then we started measuring after the YouTube channel. We started to get this data. But it wasn't before. Let me tell you, the mixing of genres. Let's talk about that, because I think that's something that I have learned is a double-edged sword. If you want to create a very unique game, it's a great way to do so, but it provides just such an enormous challenge because it mixes people's familiarities and then muddies and distorts what they're looking for. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, I spent 5 years building a game that does this, and I'm very proud of Atrio. Even more proud of Atrio than Disjoint, obviously. I think, this was our bread and butter for a very long time, but it does muddy the water for sure. And I think we could have made it work if we had another 5 years experience. I think if I had to do it now, we could make it work no problem. Well, maybe not no problem, but like better than we did before, certainly. Now that I know what to do. And a big part of that, and I don't know if this is helpful for a lot of people, is we learned how to get answers quickly. And this is a particularly big challenge in Atrio because there's so many complex systems. But in that first year where we're building out these massive tutorials, it turns out that if you get in a call and you just like, if you know there are pain points and you're in a call with a one-on-one tester and you're like, just do this, Or you put up a big, ugly text box and you're like, just do this. Extra information may pull them out of the immersion, but it's like you either do that or you build a tutorial system for 6 weeks. Which one is going to be better? And so a lot of that like nuanced experience on how to get to answers quickly that can literally save you months and months of work, that was something that I learned.
And the humility of knowing that you need answers and that you don't know it all already.
Yes. It has been like at this point, it's been like 8 years of constant humbling. And the screenshots I sent you of the YouTube are the big ones. There was a period of time where I was just getting dunked on. My videos were not being watched. I was putting in like 40 hours per video, really trying hard, and no one was watching them. And so it was this constant feedback loop of like, you obviously don't know everything, and you really need to pay attention to the data, and like really stay humble the whole time, because you don't ever really know for sure. Like nothing is guaranteed. You're going to get dunked on at some point, and you just got to stay humble. You just got to stay sharp, and you got to stay hungry the whole way through. You got to be vigilant. Like there's just no way around it. So that was definitely been ingrained in me the whole time. So that is the end of Atrio the Dark Wild. Now we get to work.
One more follow-up question. You said you would be able to probably do a lot better if you tried making a game like Atrio now. Is that mostly based on the fact that you know how to get answers faster? So what you would do differently is you would not spend 5 months building all of the systems out and building a tutorial and then testing. You would build a quick and dirty version and test with that.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of things. The first thing is how to test quickly. Absolutely. I think the second thing is having a better understanding of what people want. Just experience-based. Now that I've done so much playtesting with people, you start to get a general feel of where you want to head. And obviously you still test, but when you test, you end up landing closer to the mark. Most of the time, based on, putting out features and seeing how people react. Because a lot of the process of Atrio, we're just like, okay, this is going to work. And they would do the exact opposite or hate the thing that you thought they were going to love the thing you thought they were going to hate. And you're like, I don't know anything, man. I've been doing this for so long. Like 8 years is a long time. If I was like a plumber for 8 years, I'd probably be pretty good. But now it's like, what am I even doing? So after a long enough period of time, you just kind of build up this spidey sense of like where to head.
Oh yeah.
On top of how to like produce a game more efficiently, communication skills more efficiently, how to structure like your asks with other team members, what to look for, like where, and the other team members as well, like really level up when they implement features. Instead of going all the way to the end of building like such a beautiful piece of code, you're communicating to them like, this needs to be fast. And then when you're ready to transition, effectively communicating, hey, we're done with the experimentation. Now you got to build it right. And like finding that balance, because it's really hard. If you've just gotten out of school, you think you can do it, and then you kind of go off the deep end and build something either too sloppy or too rigid. And finding that balance of how to build, effectively is extremely challenging.
Yeah,
so
and also I think a lot of people don't really think about whether they're currently building fast or if they're currently building good. They just kind of build it. So I think thinking about the distinction is, I think, definitely good advice.
Yeah, we have like a very specific process. I have like illustrations. I use Illustrator a lot. All of Atrio was built in Illustrator, so I'm very comfortable with it. So I build like a flow chart if it's like a really important thing that has burned us before. So there's like a clear track of like, you're building an experimental feature, and these are the things that you're going to be doing. That involves the whole team. Like there needs to be a proposal and a conversation and a sign-off, an architectural proposal, that sort of thing. If it's like a full feature, does it work with the rest of our systems? Is it in line with our code? Does it make sense? Does the whole team understand it? Or if it's experimental, like, you do a really quick proposal to make sure that it's you at least understand what I'm asking, and then you go and build it. And so those sorts of things they make a huge difference. They're very subtle. It's like that subtle, program manager skills that you kind of build over time, but they make a big difference when you're working with a team of 3, even smaller than a team of 2. Just that communication between 2 people. So, are you ready to transition?
Yes, let's go. I'm enjoying your talk here. Let's go.
This was the big transition. I think us as a studio once we finished Atrio, and especially in the last 2 years with the YouTube channel, I was really starting to realize that the idea matters a lot. And we were hankering to kind of move on. And like it was percolating in my head, like, if we had done this differently, if we'd chosen this differently and we'd done this differently, especially those first 6 months. Like I said, I'm very proud of how we produced the game. I think it went really well. But those first 6 months you can't take back, and we were kind of stuck with Atrio. In all fairness, there were a lot of positives about it. We now, because we built the game for 5 years, we had this massive code base. Massive code base. The one thing I didn't mention, I'm going to go on tangent here, is we got burned in the most unusual way. When we released in 1.0, we had like an avalanche of negative reviews because we didn't have key mapping. Like you couldn't assign keys, which who would have thought, like when we talk about where to put your time, we were like, okay, like we're a small indie team, adding key mapping would be a ton of work. And like, do people care?
Yes.
It turns out they do. It turns out they do a lot. They really do. So our system, again, we weren't really thinking about it. Our system basically, we had to build on top of, it was a whole mess. We were kind of in a rush to trying to get it out. It took us like 5 months to build key mapping. Like we had one person on it for literally 5 months. Because
that's way too long.
The way we had built our key mapping system, or like our control system, just didn't work for key mapping, especially in such a UI heavy game. Like there's all sorts of different key controls if you're, in a settings menu or another settings menu or a UI menu, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is, I don't think there'll ever be a time where I know for sure. In my entire game dev career, there's never going to be a time where I'm going to be like, yes, 100% this is going to work. I'll hopefully get closer, but you never know. And so now we have key remapping in all of our games. It's just like standard across the board.
So you have built a bunch of reusable systems with Atrio. If you say we have such a large code base, that means you have a lot of parts that you can reuse also, including the key mapping.
That's very well said, because yes, one of the biggest learnings we had from Atrio is I was really now starting to think long-term about the company and how we would succeed. And I was starting to realize with the YouTube channel, like, hey, building a fan base, even if these games are totally different, if some people are paying attention, they're just getting a little bit of momentum from project to project, so we don't have to start from scratch, is a massive advantage. And then, hey, we have this code base. We just spent the last 5 goddamn months building key remapping. I don't want to do this again. This sucks. Let's think about reusable code. And so from 1.0 launch, which was in 2023, to the start of Get to Work, which was 8 months later, we spent that time building a reusable code base. We looked at all of our systems, the settings menu, the audio, the localization, key remapping, how we flow from title screen and we load into games, how we load that sort of stuff. Like we have credits, we have, a whole bunch of architectural stuff that is shared. We started looking at that and we built what we call now Isto Core, which is this sub-module that every single project has access to. And it's shared all the way across. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to best do this. This worked for us. And so if we update it for one project, it gets shared for other projects.
Do you use the Unity package manager? Like, do you have a repository for your core package, or how do you know how you handle that?
Yeah, it's all in Git. So we don't use Unity at all. Yeah. So it's all in Git. And I didn't set it up. So I know only the surface level.
If it's in Git, then you're probably using the package manager and adding it via the Git repository.
No package manager. It's the code. So the only thing we share is code, and that's all via Git using a submodule. I can't share. I don't know anything beyond that.
Okay. It's okay. Somebody else on the team did that. Got it.
Yeah. But I know we had a conversation about package managers, and we very explicitly decided not to use a package manager.
Got it. Because I recently did some research into reusable code. I'm starting to dip my toes into that, and I think nowadays, if you do it, I think package manager is the way to go, because you can just you can also just put it in a separate repository and sync it like that. But there are different ways to do it. Yeah.
It's too late now. So going into Atrio, or going out of Atrio and into the next project, I think the one thing we really wanted to do is work on a smaller project. We had this reusable code, and I had this idea like, okay, now that we have a title screen and all this extra stuff that we built, why do we not try and break the mold? Why don't we not try and like come up with the most unique mechanic? Let's just execute. Let's not pick something that's going to push us out of our boundaries and do multiplayer or like an MMO. Let's do the simplest game we possibly can at the highest level of execution with a certain amount of time. And when I say highest level execution, if you look to get to work, it is not a masterpiece in any way, shape, or form. I mean, like what players want in the most efficient way possible, while also delivering a great product, to be clear. Like I try not to make slop games.
Well, focusing on the things players want is making a great product, right?
Definitely. So I had known Atrioc now for about 2 years. And he, at this point, had reached out to me, interested in a project. And so I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And so we met, and this is the presentation I shared with him. I wanted to share this because it's the authentic one-to-one presentation, and it really kind of illustrates what I had learned at this point. So
you're really making the video for me at this point. I love it.
We stay organized. I'm a YouTuber. Well, I know how this works.
Yeah.
So this is Atrios wishlist data. Now, this box is everything leading up to 1.0 launch. I think 1.0 launch throws out the data. It like the spikes are too high, so I've kind of clipped it out for you.
Yeah, can we roughly describe what we're seeing for audio only users?
I forgot you're a podcast. We'll see. Maybe I can talk about it as I go on. So in early access, you can see some data here. There's some spikes, and I have labeled them. These are the traditional ways that you gain wish lists. Steam Next Fest. There's the launch, which was obviously our biggest contribution to wish lists. We got onto the new and trending on Steam, and we got onto the Steam Winter Sale. So there's 4 major points in which we gained wish lists. Now, keep in mind, the scale of wish lists is obviously much lower than a lot of the guests you had. You have had some very successful guests on this show. So take it with a grain of salt. This is really like mid-level developer success. But I think the trends still apply. And this is important to me because I compare what we do in comparison to the other like ways to gain wish lists. Yeah. So if I had released, for example, an Imager post, you will see it's not on here. It got like 10 wish lists. And we spent a bunch of time releasing Imager posts and no one gave a shit. And it's like, okay, like in comparison to being a part of Steam Next Fest, is this worth my time? And you can see that some stuff clearly was. For example, our YouTube. Our YouTube put in so much work. If we didn't have the YouTube, I genuinely think the game would not have sold at all. Like, there was a huge period of time where no one cared about the game at all. And
These are Atrio numbers, right?
Yes. These are Atrio numbers, yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So in 2020, my first vlog that did well, the 1 year, you can see that blip. That really like did some numbers. I had a bunch of flop videos that you can slowly see kind of trickle in the wish lists. And then my 2-year vlog, which I think did, at the end of all of this, got like 600,000 views, contributed a ton of wish lists. And again, keep in mind that this is a game that already is handicapped because it's confusing. It's mixing 2 genres. It's not clear on what people want. So I am literally dragging this game across the finish line by my bare hands, right? If it was a game that I think people were really excited about, it'd be playing on easy mode. But so much of the marketing was playing on hard mode. The vlogs were hard to make. Like, it's a complicated game. I had to make it exciting and sexy. And so it's both bad because I wanted the game to do well, but it's also good because if you are learning under these conditions, the only way to succeed is to be really good or to try to be really good. And so playing on constant hard mode, like, constantly kept me humbled and hungry. And so I was putting a ton of time into thinking about how to edit videos, really focusing on like how to be engaging and funny and interesting to make people watch these videos and convert them. So yeah, like a lot of the video, the YouTube channel did work. And you notice here, you played our game right before it spiked. I thought I put that in there.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Because you reviewed the game eons ago, which is kind of fun. So there was one other factor that made a huge difference in our sales. Those other spikes, those anomalous spikes, were Atrioc exclusively. Now, what's so cool about Atrio, and maybe cool is the wrong word, but we had literally no traffic at all. No one cared about the game. So this data is literally 1-for-1. There are no other factors muddying up this data to make it like unclear of like, I don't know what this was. Like, No one cared about the game. So these spikes are literally from one source, which is kind of cool.
From
So
one
the first
live streamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these Reddit videos that I posted for him when he reacted, he had a pretty big audience, contributed a lot. The second video that he put out, you can see it was like next to our 1.0 release, it was our biggest contribution to Wishlists.
So what kind of content was this? Was it like reaction videos or what was it?
So Atrioc is at the time was pretty unique, where he has this very involved community. And every week he would do a Reddit recap where you could post to his Reddit and he would react to them. So he'd have videos and he'd have memes and stuff like that. He doesn't do it anymore. I think he's really kind of pivoted his content. But I had been a fan of his content for quite a long time. And so I thought it'd be funny because his name is Atrioc and the game was Atrio. I posted a video about how he had stole our game. It was a whole bit. I had my lawyer involved in the video. It was pretty funny. And just over the series of like reacting to these videos, we'd sort of built a rapport in the community. So it didn't feel like self-promotion because it wasn't, because I genuinely was a fan of his content and I was just making it for fun, but also kind of egging him along to get him to play the game. And it was good for his channel. It was good for my channel. So it was a mutual relationship in which, he kind of started engaging with that because the videos were high quality. At this point, I kind of knew what I was doing when it comes to video production. So by the time he played the game, which was in November 4th, 2021, we had built a relationship. And so people were kind of excited to see him play this game. And that really, really helped. And so at the end of this project...
The meta story of this entire thing is this presentation that you're currently sharing with me, you then later shared with him as for example, this slide is to show, hey, look, your reactions really contributed to our wish lists.
Yes, this is the presentation I gave him right before I pitched Get to Work.
Got it.
So zooming out, these are the spikes of Atrioc. So you can see they're fairly significant. And this is where we get into my pitch. So I was thinking about volume of games. And there's a lot of like weekend projects and small slop that you never see. And those, I think those contribute to most of the volume of games that come out. You don't see many of them. Obviously, Steam just like washes them away. But then there's indie games, AA and AAA. And like as the production costs go up, there's less competition. And so my thought process is, let's say you're creating a rage game. It's a lot easier to make a rage game than it is to make an automation game. You could, in theory, make a rage game in 1 year and 2 months. Foreshadowing. But if you're making a game that's easy to make, how do you stand out? Because the competition is so much higher. It's not like automation games where people are just, at the end of the year, they're like, I need more automation games. There's only like one big one that comes out every couple of years. I am just like ready to try something else. And my idea is marketing. Marketing gets the game out, especially in this context. And in this context, streamers. For rage games, it's streamers. When they play the game and put it out on YouTube, that's how you discover the game. And if you happen to have a streamer who's pretty big and influential, the risk of getting discovered by a streamer basically drops to zero. That was the pitch anyway. There's a lot more nuance to it, obviously. It's not guaranteed, and I'll explain it later, but that was kind of the idea. And so we were like, there's lots of games that we can make that are good streamer games, but in terms of scope, in terms of execution, rage games seem like they'd be the simplest and easiest to execute. So if we want to have like a working relationship and do multiple games, let's start with the simplest one now. And if it goes well, maybe we'll consider doing something else. Multiplayer, horror, whatever. So that was the pitch. Oh yeah, I thought it'd be kind of funny to show this. This is the original pitch. This is what I had. I literally went to Unity, downloaded some free assets and slapped this on top. I was like, oh, hey, let's build like an only app Super Monkey Ball game where we kit bash. These are the proposal pitches that I put together. Like you can tell that quality is not a focus for this pitch. And this was literally my description of how the game would be. You'll start in your parents' basement and work up to the board of directors. That was it. That was the whole pitch. And we went from there, which is kind of fun. So it just goes to show you, like, you don't need to make a beautiful pitch deck. It all is dependent on context.
Right. And obviously for the people who don't know Get to Work, the premise is that you have this ridiculous rollerblade suit where you basically parkour an obstacle course up this tower through various levels of management and so on.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is like Super Monkey Ball meets Get to Work, or Getting Over It.
Yeah.
And so it's very flowy, but very sort of rage-inducing. A lot of the focus is really on the flow. If you learn the mechanics, and this is like, for every rage game, I think the core thesis is it's actually very beatable if you're really good at controlling the character. There's no obstacle to stop you from beating the game really quickly if you are good enough or practiced enough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that is the pitch of Get to Work.
So now we need conclusion to the story. How did it go?
So you know how I told you about validating with players early? That was like one of my number one learnings from Atrio and Disjoint. We didn't do that. We completely ignored it.
Damn. Following your own advice is
following
tricky.
my own advice. But this was a little different. This was way lower risk. It was a much shorter game. So I actually split the team into two. One team was working on Isto Core, this like shared reusable code base. And then the other half of the team was working on Get to Work. So because of the shareable code, we had the title screen, we had a playable game within 3 weeks. I'm talking like the full flow. Obviously, it was ugly and disgusting, but like all the infrastructure that you, as a beginner, that I spent building at the end, we spent 10 months building the menu and the flow and all that. That was just like out of the box, ready to go.
And then you built the game in 3 weeks, so it was already fully playable after 3 weeks, or like
very jankily, but yes. We had like a dirty, ugly playable prototype in 3 weeks. Yeah, you can see it on my YouTube channel. I think I have labeled everything. If you want to pull up a clip, you can show what it looked like at 3 weeks.
Got it. I will grab that clip from your channel.
Yeah. The other really cool thing about choosing a very small project is projecting scope is significantly easier. And so in my pitch, I said from start to finish, we can build this game in 1 year. From start to finish. So October 1st to October 1st, we can have this game done. Except for one thing. So there was some bonus stuff that we were like, if our playtesters like the game, we will add a much deeper story and some voice lines. And maybe do some extra stuff. And so, but in general, I think like 1 year on the dot, we can do it if we don't do the extra bonus stuff. So we built in total secret from the public, which is crazy, and I wouldn't do it again. To be clear, this was a very, strange case where we had all this marketing firepower, and the game was simple. We had a prototype that was fun, like pretty quickly, and we were like, okay, like we'll make an exception this time, especially because we cared about marketing momentum, which in most cases I would not care about. But this was a particularly weird case where, we didn't tell anybody. So coming up to October, the playtests were going exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. There was such a big difference in reception between Atrio and Get to Work. And this is one of the things that I'm so excited about, having worked on two projects that haven't done so well. It gives you perspective of the difference in this subtle language that people use when they're excited. And like when people played Disjoint, they were like, this is cool. Okay. Yeah, this is cool. When they saw Atrio, they're just like, yeah, this is cool. I would play this. Yeah. In Get to Work, the people who wanted to play the game were like, I need to play the game. And when they got the demo, they would play it. Like we wouldn't have to ask them. They would play multiple times. They would share with their friends. They would be like, it's so fun. Like when are you building more? Like I want to be a part of the playtest. There was just that like extra effort that they would go to be involved in the project.
Right. And the problem is that you cannot really feel the difference if you don't have any reference points, right? That's always, I think, the problem with that a lot of new developers have. They're like, the people said it's cool. So I think it's cool.
Exactly. And like, that's what I mean by nebulous. It's like, I don't know how else I would do it without that reference point of like, there's no data, you can't measure. Like maybe you can measure playtime, but this general excitement is just like fairy dust. Like you can't just grab it and be like, yes, I have something. So, I mean, game dev up until this point has felt very risky. I think now that we have more reference points, it feels safer. And I do think that we can minimize the risk from experience. But in general, I don't think we'll ever be immune. Like, there's definitely a future possibility where we release an absolute stinker of a game.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
It just is what it is, but we try our best and we do everything we can to learn and adapt. So the biggest thing was being able to see that reception. That was very exciting for me because now I had a reference point. The second thing that happened is Atrioc obviously managed to pull in some bigger streamers. So the game was going really well, and we were like, okay, it is time to add on more features. I'm going to extend this project. I'm going to spend more money. Like, I feel pretty confident already. The budget was relatively low in comparison to Atrio. I feel confident enough to spend more money. Let's add a story.
Was the game in early access, or was it still in playtesting, or how did it pull in additional streamers at this point? Or was it out already?
Nobody knew about the game. It was just internal playtesters. Okay. We had people privately playing the game. We hadn't announced it.
Got it. Like, and the internal tests were going so well that we were like, okay, let's...
That's right.
Increase our stakes. Yeah.
People were actively playing the game without being asked, which is like something that had never happened to us.
Okay. Yep.
So the one big advantage of working with Atrioc is we had access to all these streamers, not to play the game, but to voice act. And so I had written the story, and a little bit of context here is when we had done the sentiment analysis for Disjoint and for Atrio, one of the highest scoring parts of the game was the story. People liked how we had written the comedy of each story, which is very surprising because in my mind, like, gameplay has always been a huge and number one focus for us. Obviously, we're making games, not writing stories or novels. So, like, you got to get the gameplay. But we just happen to write stories that people liked. They find it funny, that it scores really well, positively in all of our games. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Mm-hmm. And so we wrote this massive script and got CDawgVA to be the narrator. He was our number one choice. I said, Atrioc, like, if I could get anybody, I'd get CDawgVA. And he didn't know him very well. He reached out via a friend, and he was awesome. He was like, a lot of streamers are a little bit degenerate. It's just kind of in the nature of how they operate. They have to be spontaneous and funny. And I think a lot of that mindset comes from being a little bit degenerate. And it's not a bad thing. Obviously, we're working with Atrioc, so we obviously like streamers quite a bit. CDawgVA, on the other hand, was a total professional. It was like a stark contrast. He showed up on time. He was like super organized, super prepared. He responded instantly. It was crazy. It was awesome. He was more organized than some of the professionals that I work with in the industry. And
Nice.
I was like, okay, sold.
And also, he did a great job, right? The voice acting turned out really well.
Awesome. Yeah. It was amazing. Like, truly, when it comes to voice acting, I know he's a big YouTuber and streamer, but he is genuinely like a professional voice actor. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the highlights of the game for me. The project was working with him and just kind of seeing what a professional can do, especially of his caliber and of his YouTube size. I think there's an interesting power dynamic where you're getting a call with somebody who is obviously, like, you're not naive to how big you are, right? Across his channels, like, his main channel has 3 million subscribers. His other channel has like 4 or something crazy. You can't just like pretend that doesn't exist. But when you go into a call and you still treat someone at the same level of respect, even if they aren't as big as you, and there's like a subtle, obviously, understanding that if he contributes to the game, it's going to greatly increase the sales. He obviously didn't say that, and I don't know if he was thinking about it, but I certainly was.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy's being super nice and humble. That's like all you could ask for. So that's great. That's super awesome. Now, I don't think he'd do it out. Like, the big thing is, like, I don't think he would do it if we weren't associated with Atrioc. Like, he just probably doesn't take random calls. He's a massive streamer. And so having him involved in that capacity was amazing.
So you need contacts to get to contacts.
Yeah. These guys are so busy. I mean, he runs a podcast. He has 3 different YouTube channels. He's traveling all over the world. And so to get their time, you just can't. Like, how do you even access that? It just doesn't really make any sense.
Because I was meaning to ask, do you think it's a reproducible strategy to involve streamers in voice acting or other things?
Unless you know them, I don't think so.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't think so. It just kind of happened. It was very like spur of the moment. And to be honest, we would have been okay by just hiring professional voice actors. The story in its own, again, scored really well. In fact, it was one of the highest scoring things when it came to the game was the story. People
Mm-hmm.
absolutely loved the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously super biased, but I'm really trying to focus on like the data of like the comments following what people are saying on stream and in the Steam reviews.
What about the writing did they like here, and why do you think you're doing a good job with writing in general in your games? What's your process there?
I think I'm trying to describe it with sound braggadocious.
Don't worry, you have permission to brag. Voila.
Okay, yeah. I think we know how to write funny stuff. Honestly, that's just kind of it. Like our bread and butter is like a certain type of comedy that involves gameplay that you don't get in like traditional media, taking advantage of the actual gameplay systems to subvert expectations. Because I've been making games for so long, when we write, it just kind of works together nicely because I can think about the sequences of where people will be at. I've done so much playtesting as a gameplay designer. You can know where people's heads are at with the gameplay. So they'll be thinking about one thing and then you can like rip the cord from them in another way and like subvert expectations. And I think that really works well. I think as well, the story was extremely relatable.
Mm-hmm.
It's about climbing the corporate ladder and really a satire on today's like marketplace, like getting ghosted and having to submit like an actual physical resume. And then when they get the resume, they ask you to fill out their online application.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just such a relatable thing to so many people that when you put that in, it's almost sad, but it's kind of funny. And as a way for them to sort of, relate to real world experiences in a less negative way.
So it relates both to the gameplay as well as to real world experiences.
Yeah. And I just think generally I'm naturally a decent writer.
Mm-hmm.
I work with other people, to be clear. I'm not good at working on my own. I'm extremely collaborative. And so what I do is I usually bring in a writer who helps me. I'm usually the primary writer, so I write kind of everything, but they spitball with me and then they edit my stuff and then, oh, this doesn't make sense and kind of go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my secret sauce is I always work with somebody when I write. I don't work alone, typically ever.
Okay, so you know with somebody who's skilled at writing and you bounce things back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. And I this time, Nikayla, incredible, awesome, super professional. She doesn't work in tech at all. She's a teacher. She just happened to be an excellent writer as well. So
nice.
I provide the context on like video game stuff, and I'm thinking about like the extra context of a game, and she's focused on the writing, the grammar, the hits, like how it all kind of comes together. So it's a good combination. I really liked working with her. It was awesome. Let's talk about launch. Let's talk about marketing. That's what we really got into because this is an experiment in marketing. Because I remember reaching out to you about Steam Next Fest. We had intentionally chosen not to participate in Steam Next Fest, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
It's so unconventional. It's so crazy. But we had a good reason. We had all this momentum from streamers. My thought process was streamers, and this is largely from what Atrioc is telling me. He's obviously got a lot of context on what streamers do, what they care about, how to get them interested in the game, what they want. And I'll share some of that with you. It surprised me, to be clear. But he was like, momentum matters. Like, if you think about what is most important, would you rather have wish lists or would you rather have sales? And obviously, you'd rather have sales. And how do you get sales? Well, wish lists is one way you convert, but it's also discoverability. It's also from the Steam page store. It's also from watching streamers. And so we basically decided to sacrifice the wish lists for the streamers. If they care about momentum, they discover the game like close to launch, then people are excited. It's on their minds. They're thinking about, oh, what games should I play? There's a much higher chance that they will kind of get this snowball effect. Now, normally I would never do this. Ever in a million years, that's insane. But we had a massive streamer who was for sure going to play the game. He was involved in the project. He was excited about it. He had played the game a ton, and he was like, this is going to be a good stream game. Like, if nothing else, I am your fallback. If it goes to total shit, I'm going to play the game and really promote the shit out of it. So that's why we decided to not announce the game or launch the Steam page until 3 weeks before. And that is the earliest you could put out a game. I looked it up. We tried to go the earliest. You can't hot drop it. Steam does not let you do that, but you have to go about 3 weeks before. And so
for the Steam page, yeah.
For the Steam page.
Yeah.
And this was a primarily Steam release, plus Xbox. We had experience with Xbox, but primarily Steam. So 3 weeks up till launch, I had 4 videos ready because I'd been recording the whole time. So I had basically been making videos. I had the trailer ready. The game was, pretty close. And so we were ready to go out the door. We announced 3 weeks right before launch. And I'll send you the graph. This is the difference between Atrio and Get to Work. And Chris Zukowski has talked about wishlist momentum. And I think there's some validity to this, is that sure, you can have 50,000 wish lists, which is what Atrio had on launch. But that momentum of like people, it's that excitement. It's like, I'd play this maybe. You think about how many people add stuff to wish lists and never buy it. And I'll get into this. It's like what I call the gap. It's that level of excitement that pushes people to buy the game. That getting slowly trickling wish lists doesn't necessarily guarantee conversion because people are just like, maybe. Yeah, maybe I'll wish list it. As opposed to like, oh my God, I need to play this. And I think this trend that you're seeing in this chart, in 3 weeks, we've got 16,000 wish lists, which is obviously like tiny numbers compared to some of the games that are top tier. Your people are launching with like 1 million wish lists. But the momentum for 3 weeks was pretty high enough for me to be excited. And again, we were not banking on wish lists. We were really like, when launch comes, that's when things hit.
And I mean, that was the strategy. The strategy was not we're going to build wish lists over a couple of years. It was we're going to have a lot of momentum.
Yes.
You said something along the lines of what streamers care about. What do streamers care about?
Now, this is really interesting. So there is obviously social dynamic between different groups of people, and this is people's jobs. I think the biggest thing you have to recognize when working with streamers is this is their job. They care about what they do, and authenticity is extremely important. Even if you disagree with some streamers, a lot of streamers, and authenticity is dependent on what on their channel specifically. But it's like what is true to them. There's a huge difference in reception when they're paid to play a game and they have to advertise that it's an ad versus a game that everybody's excited to see them play. And that is the huge difference. You cannot manufacture that excitement on an organic playthrough.
Right.
And this is what Atrioc expressed to me, is he's like, honestly, our marketing strategy is I'm actually not going to ask anybody to play it. Not a single person. The only person you can guarantee to play is me, because I'm part of this project. It's my project. But when I play this game, it's going to be slightly inauthentic because I am biased. I'm super, super biased to this game. So the only way to find success is to actually build a really good game for a stream. There's no shortcut to this. There's no getting around it. You work with the streamer. It's not going to guarantee you success. And we've seen this, actually. Yeah. There's been some really big streamers who have put out games that have absolutely flopped. Yeah. In fact, there's been streamers who are 5 times bigger than Atrioc, 6 times bigger, like massive streamers, and their games have absolutely flopped. I don't know if you can show it. I don't know if I want to show it. I don't want to cause drama.
That's okay.
I'll show you. I'll show you after, and then you can see. It was expressed to me that it's all dependent on the game.
Oh yeah.
He is a backup. He got us the voice actors, and the big thing that he did was sort of the subconscious, bringing the game to the forefront of people's subconscious minds. Streamers' big subconscious minds. Oh, Atrioc made this game. I'll check it out. That's all you get. You get the opportunity for them to look at the Steam page, for them to properly evaluate and choose on their own whether or not this game is for them. That's extremely important. You only get step 1.
Yeah.
But most people never get step 1. And that is a massive advantage. We had enough experience. This is like our 3rd commercial game. We had enough experience, plus Atrioc telling us thinking about streamable stuff. We had enough experience and confidence building that game to know that if we got to step 1, we could carry our way through. But I just want to express that is not a free ticket. If you could get the biggest streamer in the world, maybe that's a big difference, because Kai Cenat is like 100 times, 1,000 million times bigger than everybody else. But like anybody in the normal category, if you don't build a good streamable game, it's not going to work. Like, just straight up. There's no cheat code to this. You got to do it right. You got to understand what makes a good streamable game. And that's very challenging. It has a lot to do with emotions and storytelling and beats. A lot of the way I approached this was thinking about a good YouTube video. Obviously, my experience in YouTube is what I wanted to rely on because it's what I know. And I think about a good hook, how people would introduce the story, and like the twists and turns along the way of like drama and reaction that they could have to make a good experience, a watchable experience. So we thought about a lot of that. There was a lot of discussion, theory crafting on like, how do we structure this game to be great for both stream and YouTube?
And obviously also the store page has to be very optimized for that, right? Because you said step one is that you get them to click on your store page. What do streamers want to see on your store page? What do you think?
That might be a misnomer. I don't know if they care about the store page. They might watch someone else play it. They might watch a YouTube video about it. They might hear it from other streamers. Or they might click on the YouTube page, sure, but they'll watch the video, right? If they watch the gameplay, just like any other game, and they think it's goofy and fun, if it's relatable to another game they've played that did well on stream, they're collating their other data of like what videos did really well, what streams did really well, and trying to correlate that with what they're seeing with yours. It's hard because you don't know unless you kind of talk to them or you've done YouTube, what works and why it works. But because I had Atrioc and I'd done a YouTube channel, I have a much sort of keener sense on, oh, this did well because of these reasons. So it was a good fit for us. I don't know if I could help other people find the same success. Maybe they could. I'm sure they could. But, for us, I just want to focus on what we were thinking.
And those 100,000 wish lists that you got in 3 weeks, what were
16,000.
16,000?
Yeah.
But with a lot of momentum, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
the graph was
the
like...
release. There's the release. Okay, got it. And then it kept growing after launch. Yeah,
yes. It's just, continues to go up after launch.
Got it.
For sure.
And where did those 16,000 come from?
That was from primarily my YouTube channel. Actually, almost exclusively my YouTube channel.
Okay.
No one else was talking about the game because we hadn't released anything. We didn't do a demo. Atrioc gave a shout out, obviously, in his channel. And it was, his streamer friends kind of heard about it a little bit. But primarily, it was my YouTube channel. And at this point, I had kind of really started to figure out YouTube. And, I'm saving this for later about YouTube. So I've kind of been light on the details. But you can kind of see that my viewership numbers started to really go up at this point. And it's sort of the same realization that I had with game dev is the idea really matters. And we were stuck with Atrio. And so my viewership was being handicapped because I was working on hard mode. I was playing on hard mode, making videos about Atrio. But we'll get there. So let's talk about launch, because launch was insane. I will share this, but I want to share a couple things across the board. So launch weekend happens and it goes really well. Atrioc actually doesn't play the game the first weekend, and that's intentional. Obviously, we don't want the guy who's played the game a shitload to play the game right off the bat. We want people who genuinely are new to the game to play the game on stream, because that's what matters. Seeing people's genuine reactions to the game is important. So we had a plan. Atrioc was going to hold off for kind of as long as possible. We actually, in secret, built him a secret version that was way harder without telling him, which is quite funny. A lot of work. I don't know if I do it again. Because I wanted to find a way to have him have an organic playthrough, because he play tested the shit out of the game, so he was much better. That happened. I also ran a speedrun competition. I'll talk about that in a bit. So that was very helpful. And so launch went really well. We were very happy with the launch, especially given the timeline was much shorter. The game was much smaller scoped. The polish was obviously a little bit less in terms of art. But the general reception was quite good. And then the weekend hit and people started to play it. Now, I've listed all of the YouTube videos that kind of came out, and like it kind of gives you an idea of like when people played the game. So a bunch of streamers played it right off the bat. And again, Atrioc hadn't asked anybody to play it. It was really this rolling organic effect of one streamer had a really good time and good viewership with the game. And so other streamers were like, okay, this seems like it'd be good for my stream. I think the biggest streamer right off the bat was XQC, who's quite big. I think Forsen played it. We just kind of had this like organic momentum where people picked it up the first day, had a good time. Squeaks played the game. So Squeaks is a bit different. He's close friends with Atrioc. Again, though, he would not have played as much as he did just because they're friends. That it's not how it works. Again, they're professionals. They care about their channel. If it sucks, they'll play it a little bit and then they'll move on. So, you got to put in the work and it's got to be good. I think the big turning point, so the launch was very successful and I would have been happy with that. But the big turning point was Ludwig. Ludwig, who again, really good friends with Atrioc, but again, was not obligated to play the game. He didn't ask him to play the game. He picked it up and the chat loved it. It was like, it was his biggest video of that month. People went nuts for a couple of reasons. We put in this sequence called the hat sequence, where you can choose to fall down to the bottom.
I saw
There's
those clips.
Yeah, this line of like a series of rooms where CDawgVA is basically like, okay, well, there's a hat at the bottom of this, but it takes you all the way to the bottom of the game. You have to start again. And there's literally, the hat does nothing. It doesn't help you in any way. It just is funny. And we were expecting like one big streamer to do it and then no one else to do it. Every streamer, I'm not kidding, every single streamer did it because it's such a good streamable experience. And it's so much funnier because the precedent had been set by Only Up, where at the very end, they make you fall, but they don't tell you, which in my opinion is kind of bullshit. I'm really not a fan of like unfair mechanics. And so we used that momentum in that context to flip it on its head, where we were like, no, like we're telling you in advance, you have to go through 7 rooms of like this annoying dialogue to go there. You got to earn the right to fall to the bottom, which makes it so much funnier because like you're listening to these voice lines and you're literally sitting in a room that's empty with nothing going on, just the narrator's making fun of you, and then you choose to fall to the bottom, and then you get this stupid hat that says dunce on it, and then you got to do the whole thing again. That's it. And like you get a song, which was amazing. Like people really liked the song. It was part of Atrioc's community. We had this like talented group of musicians who made like a legitimate banger song. Like people actually were like, put this on Spotify. I will genuinely listen to this. So that was a huge bonus.
Congratulations, you've won it. A dunce hat for the biggest loser. Congratulations, you've done it. Hats on for the biggest loser.
So it took off the edge of them falling, and the stream loved it. Like people were having a really good time. And then when you got back up, there was a second hat. So, you know, it's like, oh, they couldn't possibly do this again. You go into the room and it's like, no, there's a second hat, but like, are you serious? Like it's another hat, but it's like the cheapest possible version of the same hat. So we tell you in advance that it's like going to be a letdown, because if you promise something grand, they'll be disappointed. So if you're like, no, this is literally going to be the most disappointing thing you've ever done, it lets the streamer be funny. And Ludwig skipped the second hat. He was one of the only streamers who was like, I don't think so, and was like joking around and kept going to a point where he couldn't return to get the hat. The stream turned so toxic. They were so mad that he actually had to end stream. He came back the next day, played it all over again to get the second hat.
Oh, God.
Which is, I mean,
good for you.
Yeah, good for you. It made the stream so much better, right?
Mm-hmm.
People were talking about like, I think it was like their dead friend Jonah who would have loved to see the hat. And it was just like so many running memes throughout the entire gameplay. And the video crushed. I think right now, it is the biggest get to work video with 2.6 million views. And a big part of that is obviously we were very careful to give people tools to create these streamable fun moments, this narrative sequence all the way through to beating the game. And the genre, the rage game genre really allows you to do that. So we were playing with an advantage, and we recognized that we had a big advantage when it comes to making videos, as opposed to, example, Thronefall, which doesn't give you those same highs and lows. But again, your game has sold, 10 times more than us. So just to be clear, a lot of people seem focused on YouTube views, but it's not the end all be all. Obviously, look at Thronefall. Like Ludwig didn't play Thronefall. He didn't have a 2.6 million view video, but like people love that fucking game. And so there's so many, and you had mentioned this in all of your podcasts, there's so many different ways to find success. This is just the way that we found it because it plays to our strengths. So just keep that in mind. Just kind of important.
To be fair, I think there are kind of 2 ways to get eyeballs on your game. One is content creators and the other one is Steam.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. I don't know if this is going on too long, but we're almost at the end, and then we can dive into all the juicy stuff.
This is your solo podcasting, but I'm really enjoying it.
Something happens after Ludwig plays the game. We go crazy in Korea, which is unexpected. Now, we had obviously localized the game. That's part of our flow. That's part of our advantage of working on multiple games is we now have a localization system. We know what to do. It's like fairly efficient. We have a team that we work with who does some of the localization work with us. We don't have to like build localization systems. So we localized in a bunch of different languages, especially Korean. It's like the classics. Anyway, the game, after Ludwig plays it, goes absolutely nuts on Korea. And I think for a couple of reasons. I think the culture is like a very strong gaming culture. If you look at like League of Legends, they're like the best. Them and China are some of the best players by far. And I think their aptitude for taking on difficult games, that culture, they like challenging stuff. So I think just having that challenge along with the flow aspect of the game appealed to a lot of players. And so I don't know if it was Ludwig, because a lot of people were playing the game, and so the data is very messy. I did my best to kind of collate what's going on, but I do think that Ludwig probably contributed to the success in Korea, because you can see some bigger videos spike in Korea. What's interesting is China, we went big in China, but it fell off pretty hard and the reviews were pretty negative. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I found out later that their version, I think it was Chinese TikTok or Bilibili, we went viral on there. Out of our, like, someone else started posting videos about us, but they were posting about how like funny the game was, because it does capture your attention. It's a bald guy in rollerblades on both his hands and feet, and they didn't express how hard the game was. I don't think, and I'm not sure 100%, but I'm assuming they don't have the same context on rage games. And so when they picked up the game, they were like, funny, flowy game. And then they got dunked on and we're like, what is this? Because obviously my channel expresses that a lot more clearly.
Sure.
Like, this is what the game is. Only buy it if you're up for the challenge. Because setting expectations is correct. So that's my assumption.
Somebody did incorrect marketing, basically, and set you up with wrong expectations.
But we're a team
That's
of 3.
funny.
What are we going to do? Like market in every region? Like, it's not
Nah,
possible.
no way.
We're not AAA, so it's fine. I mean, it's fine. Like, the vast majority of refunds are in China, but, you know, a lot of stuff is out of your control.
Sure.
So I also, let me share this with you, is I did a Steam analysis again. The big thing were bugs and glitches. And I think this is a big focus for us as a studio, really thinking about the production side of things. So when we do a postmortem, there's 3 categories that we really focus on. Is how do we make this game more fun? And so that really is like thinking about Steam reviews, thinking about playtime, thinking about engagement. Actually, let me pull this up.
What tool is this?
This was Google. I don't know. ChatGPT. This was a long time ago. Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
Right. So these are the 3 categories. When we run a postmortem, this is what we do. 1, we look at how do we sell more copies. That's primarily marketing, hooks, appeal, that sort of stuff. And that is largely data focused. That's looking at Steam wishlists. That's looking at market stuff. When we do our postmortem, there's not a ton of discussion. It's really, we're just looking at data. The second is how do we ship a higher quality product? Better Steam reviews, better public reception, less bugs, less design mistakes, that sort of thing. That one's usually a little more in depth. And how do we improve how we make games? So we want to be more efficient. We want to make less technical mistakes during the development process. We want to be more efficient. We want to improve our teamwork. A lot of discussion kind of goes into there. And I think the big area that we want to improve upon is shipping with less bugs and being more technically proficient. And we have some thoughts on this. I think with the success of Get to Work, there's less pressure to release kind of on hard deadlines. There's really no reason to launch when, at a specific time. I think we want to give ourselves a lot more leeway between announcing and shipping. Like, we want to, my thought process is I only really want to announce a launch date when we're feature complete. And that's like giving us a specific amount of time to fix bugs and really ship with a higher quality product. That's going to be my focus for the next game, is once you have that lack of pressure, taking advantage of that, because there's really no reason. I mean, there is a reason. It's really easy to get lost in the sauce and feel the pressure, but it takes that experience to take a step back and look at your production cycle and look at your game and be like, okay, take a breather. You don't need to launch now. You don't need to announce now. Like, you're only adding these like fake pressures. They're simulated based on how you feel. Anyway, there's one more big thing.
This list of so you analyzed all of your reviews and you found the top 10 worst issues people had according to Steam reviews and the things that people like most according to Steam reviews.
Yeah,
it's interesting data. So on the first place we got bugs and glitches, inconsistent movement, lack of optimization, and on the pro side, smooth, satisfying movement, challenging yet fair gameplay, engaging, well-written narrative. Interesting.
Yeah. So you can see, I think we got the main, like, I'm very proud of the things that went positive.
Yeah.
Like, we got the things that we had to get right. Like, at the very top, it was like movement mechanics.
Yeah.
That is literally the game. If it was lower, or if it was number 6, or if it was on the other column, I'd be very depressed. We spent all of our effort building the movement mechanics. And that just reaffirms to me that we're now understanding where we should be putting our time and effort, and it's paying off.
Nice.
And even though the success is not at the levels of some of the other podcasters you've had, we are seeing from game to game an increase in commercial success. And if this keeps going, so long as we survive, which we are, which is great, eventually we'll reach a turning point where we're very successful. So I'm not too worried about it. And in fact, I'm very pleased to see an upward trajectory. And then you can see that the dialogue is number 3 and 4. So again,
very
like
nice.
people
So
like the story.
Exactly the things that you tried to make good ended up being good. That's reaffirming for sure. And then the issues people had, as you said, are off a lot of things that with more time would have been probably easy to iron out a bit more.
Yeah. Technical experience. Trying to nail that down, I think, is going to be a big thing for us. Let's get into the juicy stuff. There's one thing about Get to Work that I had not mentioned yet. And that was my YouTube channel. Because I know you and I had a brief conversation about YouTube channels and whether or not they are effective. And I know with the success of Thronefall, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of of the feeling that the Steam algorithm is so powerful that it dwarfs anything you do in comparison to that effort. And I'm in the different camp.
That's interesting. Yeah, we should argue about that. And I'm happy to clarify my position a bit more. Should we get into that now?
Yes, because there is a good transition. There was one thing that happened in Get to Work in terms of marketing that was effective. And so while we were building the game, people kept saying one thing. The speedrun for this game is going to be insane. And this is like from the first month, the first play test we had, all the way to the end. It was this constant narrative of like, I cannot wait to see the speedrun. The speedrun's going to be nuts. Speedrun's going to be crazy. Everybody kept saying it. And so I kept thinking about the speedrun video because Atrio, I had done a speedrun video and it did extremely well. It was my biggest video by far. It has 1.2 million views, which is insane. Just a little bit of clarity, like most of my videos going up to that, outside of my outliers, sit at about 10 to 15K views. With a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of other game dev YouTubers were doing way better than I was. And this video absolutely crushed it. And I started to, I kind of know this before, but I definitely made the realization that certain video ideas are just better. They tell a better story. They have this narrative structure that's closer to a movie. That's enticing. It's engaging. It appeals to a lot of people. And a speedrun is very interesting. And it's a great marketing tactic, but it's also super cool. I mean, I just like speedruns in general. And it just happens to also be a great marketing tool. And so based on the success of the Atrio speedrun, I knew I wanted to run a speedrun competition. And so I had intentionally done it where there was a prize after 24 hours, after 72 hours, and after a week. That way, there is a clear narrative beat for 3 different points. And so not one person just like beats everybody and then it's done. It's like, okay, I'm competing for the first 24 hours. Who is the best at adapting the game quickest? And then after that, like who can discover new run techniques, new glitches, new strats. And at the end is who's just the best. Now that all the strats are found, who is just the greatest? And so it gives 3 very distinct beats. I knew it'd be good. And when it happened, those first 7 days, it was pure chaos because there were so many people running it. After it happened, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be the best video I've ever made. And so I set aside a literal full month, 30 days, working hours, 8 hours a day. I set aside to do nothing but edit the video. And there was so much content. Like it was like people streaming for 8 hours a day. There was like 50 runners. I had to sift through all of it. It was insane. And when it comes to like time invested versus payoff, I would not have done this for anything else. But because of the other video doing so well, and because I've been doing this so long, I can envision how this would play out. I knew this was going to be a banger video. Let me send you the data.
I've seen the video. It is a banger.
The video is an hour long. It's an hour and 10 minutes, which is absurd. To be clear, that's a fucking movie.
Mm-hmm.
My watch retention rate is at average of 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. Even after all this time, people are still like have an average retention rate of that. It usually doesn't look like that. Usually it drops off as it gets exposed to more audience because they're less interested in that particular niche or genre. This has just kept the whole way through. It just captures your attention the whole way through. I don't think I'll ever have a video this strong ever again, and that's okay. It was exciting to know that I had a big project that would be this good, and so I put in the time and investment. The video is currently sitting at 4.7 million views. It is the biggest video, the biggest piece of content for Get to Work. It's bigger than Ludwig. It's bigger than... We had the biggest streamer in Spain. I think Spain? Play the game called Rubius. He has 13 million subscribers, just his gaming channel. And this is bigger than that. I kind of knew it was a banger. I didn't know it'd be this big. And the fact that it's an hour and 10 minutes long, 4 million people are watching like close to an hour is crazy. If you think about the impact of this versus a TikTok, you can get 4 million views on a TikTok. That's 30 seconds. And the context in which they're absorbing the information is it's like flip, flip, flip. Okay, that's kind of cool. Flip, flip, flip. You watch an hour, you're invested. You know what the game is. You see a screenshot, even 6 months later, Get to Work. And so the power of having someone watch a video like this is you just can't discount it. And so I want to share, this is sales data, not wish lists. This is sales. Obviously, I can't share the numbers. You can see the first month was great, and then it drops off. We had a great first month, and then we had the expected drop off. The peak, that is when I released the video. A spike that is comparable to the second week of launch. That video in itself, there was nothing going on. This was the only kind of real thing going on when I released that video. It was so big that it basically brought in a second spike. Now, I don't expect this to be repeatable. And if devs are thinking, oh, I might do a speedrun video, like getting a video that does 4.7 million views is absurd and not reproducible. Like, I don't expect to do this again. That's not a thing that's reasonable. I just happen to know that it was a great video. I happened to get lucky on the content, and then I put all my effort into it. So it paid off. Now, obviously, you can get effects smaller than that, but I just want to illustrate that it can be an effective tool. And my biggest reasoning for running this YouTube channel and putting in so much effort is we are seeing a trend of people moving to the creator space. The influencers are having more influence on games.
Yes.
Slowly, every single year, it's growing in that direction.
Yeah, they do.
And so my thought process that has kind of evolved over time is I kind of want to take some of that agency back. I don't want to be at the behest of a random streamer. Like, it's an ecosystem, obviously, but if I can have my own chunk of influence, then if the game dies, I can still drag its dead corpse across the finish line like I did for Atrio. Right? It's an assurance policy in case I need it. It's the push that gets the stone rolling to snowball, but it's also the thing that might save us as a studio in case things don't go well. And just for continuity, I'll share where we at with reviews. So we're sitting at 1,750 reviews, which is obviously our best game so far, considering we only put in a year's worth of work for half the team. Kind of. I mean, the whole team was working on infrastructure, so.
Yeah.
But
least amount of time spent, but still best performing game.
Yeah. But keep in mind, we spent 5 years on Atrio, and a lot of that moved over experience and code. So I don't want to say it was a year. Like, we built a massive amount of code, previous to this in preparation for. So I don't want people thinking, oh, Get to Work was built in a year when really it wasn't. It's like hard to think about. But now for us, it is like we do count it as a year because we have that code. So every project now just kind of has it. So we think about those timelines now as, when we start the project, we assume we start with the title screen and all that stuff. Yeah. So let's talk about YouTube.
Have you done the math on the spike you got from the video? Like, what's your what was your monthly salary from working on a YouTube video for a month? Was it a good time spent from a financial perspective?
Are you talking about just the YouTube ad revenue, or are you talking about sales conversion?
I guess we can do both.
When I think about YouTube, I don't even consider the ad revenue. Yeah. In my opinion, YouTube doesn't pay me anything. I just assume like it's a little bonus money, whatever, because the money is not significant at all in comparison to the amount of hours. I like if you look at my videos, especially the other ones, like they're not great, but I put in a ton of effort. Mm-hmm. I just kind of how I've always been. And so they don't, for the hours spent, they don't bring that money back.
No.
But I run a business, and my business is selling games. I'm not a YouTuber at all, flat out. The way I think about this is for the games. Now, there are a couple of videos, the Blender videos, but that was to introduce Atrioc into the gaming space. That was really like a good way for us to like learn about 3D and make videos out of it, because I knew they'd do well and grow the channel. But you won't see me making videos just for the sake of making videos. That's not my goal. And so I look at it, did this convert to sales? That's all I care about. And this spike is very significant. It's like a massive chunk of our get to work earnings. And so yes, absolutely, without question, this video was worth it.
Okay.
100%.
Okay, got it. All right, so should I maybe clarify my position real quick, and then we can see what we agree or disagree on?
Definitely. I've been doing all the talking.
I think we have a lot of overlap. Actually, I think maybe a little bit more than expected, really. I also agree that having a YouTube channel is like an insurance policy. So I think that's exactly the correct way to think about it, right? The only thing that I would say is that if you think about it on paper, what's easier? Is it easier to build a YouTube channel with 100,000 subscribers, or is it easier to get somebody with 100,000 subscribers to play your game? I think the latter is both easier and more reproducible, because you can do it multiple times, you can do it with multiple channels. So I think if you have a really good game that leans into makes for good content, then getting other people to play it, other big channels to play it, is just on paper the far more effective strategy than doing all of the hard work of building a channel that size yourself.
See, that's interesting, because I mean, it assumes that you can get the big people to play. And
the other strategy
that,
assumes that you manage to build a channel that size yourself.
True. And you might be right. Maybe it's just because I've been doing YouTube for so long that it's like, it feels like it's more of a known quantity. It feels like it's less risky to be able to put out a video that you know will do well. It's just, it feels less complex than making a game. There's just so much going on when it comes to games that so much more can go wrong. Whereas a video, I feel more confident when I have something really good that it will do well. Mm-hmm. Maybe more so now that I've been doing it for 5 years, but yeah, I find it very challenging to get other people to play the game. Mm-hmm. And that's a very scary thing for me. I'm still not super confident.
And oftentimes it's not really like you can talk them into it. Kind of like you said, it's like you can, maybe if you're lucky, you can get them to check it out. You can get them to look at your store page or look at the trailer, maybe, if you do it well. But beyond that, it's just the game. The game has to convince them to play, essentially.
Yeah, and it's also like games that don't stream well and games that don't do well on YouTube. Oh, yeah. Those make me even more nervous.
But the problem you also have when running your own YouTube channel is if you don't have a game that does well on YouTube, then you're also going to have a more difficult time. So it's kind of same problem in disguise a little bit from my experience.
And if you look at the game, like the top games this month, most of the games are not great stream games, but they're like way outselling Get to Work. And so I don't think my position is correct. I feel like this is the best decision for us based on the skills that we have. Mm-hmm. That's really that's the stance that I have. Mm-hmm. I like making YouTube videos. I think I am good enough to be sort of in the top range of game dev creators on YouTube to stand out. And we have a sizable enough audience now, and we've put in the work that it benefits us to keep going.
Yeah. And also, to be fair, I think the numbers make a big difference, right? So whether you have a YouTube, like a game dev YouTube channel where your average devlogs gets like 10K views or something, or getting 4.7 million views on a video. Obviously, those two things are not the same, right? So it depends.
So when I did the data analysis, my conclusion was, if you want to see wishlist numbers that have any sort of sizable impact in comparison to Steam Next Fest or the Steam algorithm, I sort of feel like it has to be a video has to get 100,000 views or more. That's kind of, obviously you can do less. We were doing less and still seeing decent data. But like, assuming you have a banger game that's really fun, 100,000 is my personal cap of like where I start to see a tangible difference. And it's not just direct wishlist data. I think obviously for us, the YouTube channel has like opened up massive opportunities. Streamers were definitely more interested in working with us because we had a YouTube channel. They saw my content. You know, if they see a game dev studio that has, 3 videos that have over 1 million views, it's like, okay, they know how to talk my language. They understand what's going on. There might be less of this weird dynamic of like fanboying over a creator where you kind of know, like, it just kind of changes the landscape a little bit. I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's like subtle enough that I think it has helped us. The other thing I wanted to mention is being able to work with trailer editors. I mean, if you think about the pieces of marketing that are so important, your trailer is like really number one.
Yeah.
How people see the trailer is like the most important. And if you've run a YouTube channel and put out like 50 videos and put 40 hours into each video, you're naturally going to have a better sense of like what makes a good video. And I'm not saying my trailers are the best, but I also I think they would be so much worse if I hadn't done all this work. Like having that eye for engagement and storytelling beats at least improves our trailers. So there are some benefits.
Yeah, I also think there's not necessarily a right or wrong here. It's more like, as always, the answer is sort of a little bit, it depends, right? It's hard to give general advice. Should you start a YouTube channel? Should you not? It really depends on your skill sets, how much time you're willing to invest.
Yeah.
Like sort of the numbers you can expect, also with the kind of game you make, for example, and so on. Yeah, like I said, Get to Work was playing on easy mode. That was one of the big things, is Atrio was playing on hard mode. And we were like, what would happen if we played on easy mode? And you can kind of see the results with some of my videos. And I'll send you this. There was a period of time from 2021 to 2022 where I didn't grow at all. Those Atrio videos, it was pretty sad to put on all that effort and literally not grow at all. And that big spike in 2024 is when I started, I released the speedrun video, and then I did the Blender videos. I just had the opportunity to pick better ideas with the same level of execution. I had now built all the skills to build good videos, and then you could see the channel just go nuts. Get to Work is just a streamable, YouTubeable game, plays into our strengths, and the channel just did better, which feels nice. And the speedrun video you did, it felt like something that was almost planned for a long time, right? When I watched this video, I was like, frick, that's kind of a big brain move. And I got the feeling that this was something you were planning for a long time. This specific video was not a spontaneous idea.
No. Like the structure of the competition really laid the groundwork for a good video. If we had just winged it, it wouldn't have been as strong. Like getting the word out and like putting in a prize so we would get good players. And plus we had a decent player base at the beginning to get people involved, I think really helped. So a lot of foresight into what would make a good video in that structure.
I think there's something very interesting in that, even if we say like not every game is speedrunnable enough that you can do this very well, right? But I think the idea of planning specific videos a lot of time in advance and spending a lot of time and effort building up to them could potentially be worth it for other games with somewhat different ideas. For example, you've probably seen those YouTube videos where somebody's like, I took a picture of me every day for 10 years or something. And these always do relatively well, I feel like, because there's so much time invested into something that you can just consume in 2 minutes. So it's oftentimes feels just worth it to watch it. I wonder,
Definitely.
there are probably a lot of ideas similar to this or like this that you can do with video games. Maybe also somewhat depending on what game you're making. But I really wonder how well something like I took a screenshot of my game every day for 10 years or something, how that would do. And
for me, the big thing is the type of game. I definitely am very cognizant that if we choose a specific type of game, it will impact the quality of videos greatly.
Yeah.
And I'm not against doing, in the future, doing a game that's just not good for YouTube. Because clearly that you can find success. Just the strategies to be successful are totally different.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to work on a game that's purely gameplay focused. I think Thronefall is one of those examples. I mean, to be fair, your devlogs were my favorite. And so I hope you do more. I watched all of them. I'm also like a rabid consumer of devlogs. I watch a lot just because I like them. And I really liked yours a lot. So
yeah, thank you.
Even if they aren't like the same level of viral potential, they don't have the same level of viral potential as like, get to work speedrun. I still love them personally. So
yeah, I also like making them. So there will probably be more.
Yeah, sweet. That's awesome.
But now that I'm starting to dive into a new project, right? We've just started development on a new project. I think this is a good idea to maybe scout or think about a couple of video ideas very early on that I'm confident would do well. And if you like, this is something I'll have to think about. I don't have any super spontaneous ideas on this, but this could be worth investing, right? Because YouTube nowadays is kind of like every video kind of stands on its own anyway. It's not like there's a lot of momentum with YouTube channels. Maybe you disagree. That's what it feels like to me. It's like one video can do very well, the other one can do very poorly. It's like they're not really that connected. So
no, not anymore. They definitely have done a severance of the subscriber count and the video virality. Like when I released the Atrio speedrun video, if it was tied to my subscriber count, I would get nowhere near 1.2 million views. I was at like 55,000. And so that clearly there's a huge disconnect there where you can go viral with the right video. And the biggest creators are saying it doesn't matter at all. I like to think it matters because I've been doing it long enough where it's bigger.
Yep.
But generally, I do think that if Mr. Beast started a new channel with his level of production, he could get similar views very soon.
Yeah.
I mean, just based on how the algorithm works. But there's definitely a shift, and I want to kind of change topics to short form content. Now, I personally have not done much short form content because like we're only a small team and I don't have infinite time. And so we've really invested in long form content. But with the changing of attention spans and how people are consuming media, especially in the younger generation, I am starting to think about short form content more seriously. If you look at Venadad, who I don't want to start any rumors, but like, come on, I'm pretty sure it's Danny. Like, let's be real. You can see an obvious pivot. He released a devlog, and I don't think it did that well in comparison to what this person was, expecting, and then immediately pivot to short form content, and it has done crazy well.
It has done, yeah. The shorts are really good. They have done really well.
Yeah,
I also think it's an interesting case study.
Yeah, for sure. Just I don't know if it's all I want to do. It's just not the media I consume. I don't really like consuming short form media. Kind of makes me feel sad. I don't know why. It's just like so tailored to be like brain rotted almost. Then I'm like, I kind of feel bad. I should be doing something more productive. So I tend not to consume that much short form media, but I do think it's extremely important in the future. It's something I'm going to explore for sure.
Yeah, same. I want to look into that. Sort of trying to find the correct angle. I feel like if you want to do it well, it's also not really best done. It's in hindsight, it's probably best done during development and with some planning and with some care and attention that you pick the correct ideas, right?
I am of the firm believer that those cascading decisions happen in the first 6 months, and those first 6 months are absolutely critical. Like picking the idea really, really matters a lot. I think it obviously changes. It's like I probably might do a video about that. But as you build your experience, where we are right now as a studio, now that we're in our 11th year, I feel less concerned about the technical execution. And so for us, the impact of a really good idea greatly outscales everything else because we have the ability to execute. And so now when I'm thinking about how to find commercial success, it's really like, if the idea sucks, I think we're screwed. I genuinely think that ideas are so important. And I'm not just talking about like thinking about it in the shower. I'm thinking about like finding an idea and measuring it and like having some sort of substantial context and evidence to suggest that it's commercially viable, to suggest that it's going to make people go, oh my God, I want to play this. I have this, here's the gap. You can pull this up in your video, the gap. I'm constantly thinking about the gap where it's like, this kind of looks cool and oh my God, I need to play this. I actually think the gap is even bigger than that, but I couldn't fit it into a page.
There's a jump in the graph where the reaction from playtesters goes from this kind of cool to, oh my gosh, I gotta play this.
Yeah, and this next game, I am definitely more focused on finding out how we can measure that. And I don't know if we can, but I'm going to try.
Do I remember correctly that your next game is sort of another automation game on a wall? Or was that...
not anymore.
Not anymore.
We pivoted. So with the success of Get to Work, we saw this momentum. Obviously, with streamers and having the insights of how to build a good streamer game, we have noticed a trend where streamers are starting to work with studios. The big ones, at least, the big streamers are starting to work with studios because there's that natural symbiotic relationship where if they promote the game, they have enough influence and then the game makes a lot of money. It's that natural transition. And I think that we will see more of that over time.
Do you think that the way this relationship works is typically that streamers just get a cut from the game's revenue? Or how does this relationship work typically?
I think so. Obviously, there's been different ways it's done. Some streamers are starting publishing studios. So Off-Brand Games is Ludwig's and Stanz's. And then OTK is Asmongold and all of OTK's. Mad Mushroom is the publishing for OTK, which has a bunch of different streamers in it. They run their own game show. And to be honest, I don't know if that works. And I'll tell you why. And I don't mean to shit on them. They are huge and they understand games. But if you want to be associated with the project, I do think that personal investment is what gets people to care. Like an entity and a corporation has less of a chance to get people invested on a personal level than the actual individual. So for example, if one of the streamers, his name is SFand, and I don't know much about them. I don't really watch that space. I watch more Ludwig and Atrioc. But when the conference happens and like SFan goes like, oh, check out this game from our publishing studio, it's clear that they weren't involved in the production. It's clear that they're not as personally invested in the game. And so that extra gap is bigger than you think. I think it goes back to the gap where, they're thinking, oh, it's probably just a small thing, where it's really like this massive gap between like, oh, I actually care about this project. And it's like, oh, he just invested in it. That's kind of cool. I will look at it for a tiny bit, but realistically, I'm not going to put much credence into it. As opposed to like what CoCarnage is doing. He's building a game. He's a big streamer and he is attending all of the meetings. He's like super invested in the game. He talks about it. He knows about the systems. He's designed a bunch of stuff. He's genuinely trying to learn about game design. I think that will see more success than these publishing studios because there's not that gap, which is why streamers are effective. People go for the personalities. They find this connection with that person. And if you abstract that, it reduces the effectiveness on maybe an exponential scale. I mean, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, it feels like they're just starting a publishing company, which means they have to compete with the best publishers who have figured out all their shit. Like Devolver runs like a well-oiled machine. And if you don't have an advantage on them, like I don't see why would you be more successful than them if your main advantage is not an advantage anymore? But I do think that the individual streamers are going to start to figure this out at some point, and then the marketplace will be more saturated. So, long-winded story, we're thinking about doing another streamer game. I have 2 more slides. This is all I have. So we were thinking about the perfect stream game. And this is really also YouTube. This is also like content focused. So I was thinking really 4 categories. There's online co-op, there's horror, there's AAA multiplayer, and there's rage games. Those are the 4 that I've identified. I'm sure there's some nuance to this that I'm wrong about, but this is what I'm thinking about. Obviously, AAA multiplayer like Valorant, there is a massive section of viewership on Valorant. It's endless. People watch it for years and years. It's like truly the king of content. Right. But like, I'm not going to make a first-person multiplayer shooter. That's insane. I don't have a staff of 400 people. Like, that's not even a question. I don't think we'll ever do that. We're not going to do esports. Like, that's a whole nother ball game. That's like trying to go into the mobile space.
You know what? I think there'll be a time where it'll be doable for indie devs, but I think we're not there yet.
No, I don't think we're there yet. And it's certainly like, I love shooters. That's like AAA shooters is what I play on my free time. But I have no desire to spend 5 years on a game and then watch the player count go to 0 in the first week. That sounds scary. Horror games is really interesting. So I reached out to Gavin. Cole, you know what's interesting? I've reached out to a couple of YouTube devs, just like cold DM'd them. And a lot of them have just responded and met with me. When I was first starting out, I think I had like 30,000 subscribers. I reached out to Danny and I had a big video at the time. The 1 year and 2 year had done like 500,000 views. So I thought he knew who I was. So we got in this call and I was asking him about all sorts of YouTube game dev stuff. And then at the end, he was like, I was talking about one of my videos and he's like, oh, I don't really know what that is. And I was like, wait, do you know who I am? And he was like, no, I have no idea. And I was like, you took this call not knowing who I am? And he's like, yeah. I was like, this is crazy. But anyway, Gavin was really nice. And he was talking about horror games. And horror games comes with definitely a specific challenge where people like watching, but not as many people like playing. And I think rage games are the same.
Yeah.
Because we had massive viewership on YouTube. But if you look at our numbers compared to like Thronefall example, not the same. The conversion rate was much, much lower compared to the views, which is fine. You just have to scope appropriately and understand the limitations. Not go in thinking you're going to make $1 billion, but like spend a year, spend less money, and then you will end up net positive. So the other one, and I know you're looking at this, is online co-op. Just there is something so subconsciously engaging about watching 2 people interact in funny ways. It's interesting. It's tapped into our brains in a positive, fun way, so long as the systems are there. And you can really see how lenient people can be with some janky systems, so long as it's a playground to have fun. And I'm not saying that you should. In fact, I sort of feel like if the bar is low, if you can subvert expectations and build above that, you will do well, which is great for us. Because if you can't tell, I'm definitely alluding that we're making an online co-op game. But yeah, I think definitely more challenging. We kind of knew multiplayer was going to be way, way harder. But now that we have this foundational experience, I feel like it's an appropriate time to take on that challenge.
Yeah.
So we will see how that pans out.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're in a similar boat then, right? I think we recently also exchanged some ideas for options for multiplayer frameworks that are out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a little scary because we know nothing about multiplayer. It's just the nature of taking on a new, project. You gotta kind of just to dive in and hope for the best. But we're excited. I think we'll be quiet about it for a little bit until we're ready. But this time around, we're not going to build in complete silence like Get to Work. It's not going to be the same. I think if you have something that's replayable, and can show lots of content, then there's no reason to hide it.
Yeah.
So
I really like these 4 streamable, contentable genres you have identified there. There's so much truth in this, and also interesting point that both rage games and horror games are things people like to watch but not to play.
Yeah.
And
But the bar is low. You can do
yes,
jank and do well. So like there's a really clear trade-off, and you just have to play within those rules, understanding like what that is.
interestingly, this is true for all of the categories except for AAA multiplayer, of course. Like all of them, like horror games, rage games, and even online co-op games, the quality standards you have to meet are not that high as long as the correct things are polished, right? For example, in Get to Work, the movement has to be polished. There's like no way around that. But all of the rest, like all of the visuals, and I think you even did a second map where you did like mostly prototype
it was just
graphics.
prototype textures. It was crazy.
And
I was not retexturing another map. That took me like 5 months. I was like, no way. But
that's kind of fine in these games.
Yeah, people didn't care. It's amazing what people care about and what they don't care about. Like one example is the settings menu. It's literally verbatim the same settings menu as Atrio. The same colors, the same button sounds, copied and pasted. We didn't bother to change anything. And guess what? No one gave two shits.
Sure.
Not a single complaint. Because like, it's a rage game. You're there to play like the actual game. It's if you were doing like a beautiful artistic game and then you slapped in Atrio settings menu, people would be mad for sure. But it's like jank is the name of the game. People expect that in that genre. And so you can take advantage of expectations and focus on what really matters.
Yeah. Focusing on what matters is such a core skill. I think it's one of the core skills you develop as you get better in game development. Just focusing your attention more on the important things. Yeah.
It's not easy, but you can learn it. A lot of testing, a lot of data focus, doing surveys and getting humbled. I think I would be remiss. I think I'd be in a really bad spot if our first two games had done super well. I think I'd be overconfident and going kind of blind, thinking like I know what I'm doing, rather than being not on edge. I'm not stressed about it, but I'm definitely extremely aware of our shortcomings and always trying to be vigilant, which I want to build games for a long time. And so, 5 years of sucking and like 20 years of being successful is a good trade-off as opposed to the other way around. So that's my philosophy. And maybe that's just copium because, I wanted to be successful and wasn't in the beginning, but you got to look at the positives all the way through. I think that's key to having a happy and healthy relationship with game dev.
Yeah, but I guess it's also important to point out that this content creator strategy, as you've mentioned a couple of times, is also not the only way to go, right? Because
definitely
sometimes when people listen to these podcasts, they're like, oh my God, does this mean everybody has to make co-op and rage games now? That's probably not the case, right?
Yeah, and that's why I've tried to really emphasize that like the numbers of Get to Work are not as big as like Balatro and Thronefall. Like there's a million ways to be successful. And I'm just trying to share what's worked for us, but we might pivot at some point to, follow the Steam algorithm and just bank on that. But not today. We have this momentum and we're going to try it and see how far we can go.
But the good thing I think with co-op games is that co-op games are the genre where you can do both. You can do well on the Steam algorithm and you can do well with streamers, because it's the only one of the 4 genres that you've identified here that people like to watch and they like to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, fingers crossed. Yeah. Fingers crossed that's the case, but that's the running theory. Just I know the technical side of things, it's way more complicated. It's definitely way more challenging. I'm just really glad we didn't do this as our first game. I'm glad this is what we're tackling on our 4th game.
Yeah.
So I know we've been chatting for a while, so why don't I close out with one last piece of advice? Not advice, but insight that I've had. And that is, I know we've built this, so like we're doing an online co-op game, so we've built a puzzle game, an automation game, a rage game, and now an online co-op game, which seems insane. Like in terms of brand strategy, there's no clear path linking all of them, to each of us from project to project. And yet people seem to be excited about what we're doing. And I think one of the biggest learnings that I have had across this entire game dev journey is every time you finish a project, you add something to your arsenal. And if you only take on one really big thing every single time, it minimizes scope while also pushing your boundaries. So Disjoint, we learned how to build a big project. Atrio, we built a massive code base. Get to Work, we learned how to build 3D, and we learned more about streamers. And now with all of that combined, we're going to take on multiplayer. And so rather than starting with that and getting absolutely shit on, building that slowly is, internally in the studio, there's a clear through line of the progression of the studio of like systems and processes and learning new skills progressively. And that's the one thing that if you were to take away something is thinking outside of just a single game, think long-term. Like if you're really passionate about game dev and you try it and you think that your skills suit the industry and you think you can survive, I would encourage you to think longer term than just one game. How do you survive long term? Because the advantages you get from game 1 to game 2 is so big. From game 2 to game 3 is massive. And from 3 to 4, I mean, we'll see if the game flops, I'll be biting my tongue. But like, I do think that at every single game we've released, we add advantages onto our plate and reduce the risk and increase the chance of success. So, try and think long term. That's my advice.
There are probably more questions I could ask, but I don't want to ruin your closing words, and I think they were quite awesome. Think long term. I think it's great advice.
Definitely. I saw that we've been recording for like 2 hours. So I was like, oh, that's a long podcast. Most of yours are like an hour, right?
They've been more like 2. Most of them have been more like 2. So this is about average time that we've reached here. And I think I'll just bring you back another time because I feel like there's probably more knowledge to extract from you. But this was great start. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much, man. This was like I think everybody who watched this to the end will agree that this was like getting this kind of advice and insight for free is kind of insane. So I really do appreciate it. It was really
glad
cool.
You liked it.
All right.
Okay.
I'll just stop the recording there.